es cuestionar los fundamentos. En Congreso Futuro creemos en la ciencia, la tecnología y las investigaciones de frontera y muchas veces recurrimos a ellas para buscar respuestas a nuestros problemas, nuestros conflictos y amenazas futuras. Tomamos la ciencia, la miramos, la fragmentamos, la especializamos y confiamos en ella para que nos lleve a descubrir eso que queremos saber. Eso que puede revelar un poquito más de nuestra especie y nuestro ecosistema. Aquí buscamos refugio en la ciencia, pero ¿es verdaderamente la ciencia la respuesta a todos nuestros problemas? Tal vez muchos aquí presentes dirán que sí, que es una especie de faro de verdad revelada. Tal vez unos pocos se atreverían a dudar. Nuestro siguiente bloque se llama Cuestionar los fundamentos. Y vamos a contar con la presentación de un personaje ineludible de las últimas décadas. Un hombre al que la organización del Congreso Futuro viene cortejando desde el principio. Uno de los invitados más codiciados que hasta ahora no había podido participar. Se trata de uno de los intelectuales públicos más reconocidos de la historia moderna, lingüista y filósofo, anticapitalista y disidente. Su activismo político e innumerables escritos con una visión crítica del capitalismo contemporáneo lo han situado como uno de los pensadores más importantes de su tiempo. Es además uno de los principales representantes del socialismo libertario y referente, por cierto, de la izquierda mundial. Desde su casa en Arizona, Estados Unidos, conectado en vivo y en directo en este momento, escribe y pasa sus días opinando permanentemente de los asuntos de la contingencia. Especial preocupación, por ejemplo, le merece estos días el esfuerzo de las superpotencias mundiales por lograr la hegemonía en torno a la guerra entre Rusia y Ucrania y el suministro de armas que hace su país a la nación invadida. Hace algunos días dijo en una entrevista que la humanidad está dedicada a su propia destrucción. En el Congreso Futuro presentamos la charla Cuestionar los fundamentos. Le damos la bienvenida al profesor Noam Chomsky. Good afternoon, Professor Chomsky. This audience is yours.
Thank you. I'm sorry that I can't be with you in person, but second best is to be with you live virtually. I'd like to discuss a particular form of anti-scientism, a very concrete one that will bring the human experiment to an inglorious end unless it is overcome. You want me to start? Okay, I hear a lot of noise in the background, so I'll start now. Sorry I can't be with you in person. Second best is virtually live, not pre-recorded. Hope I have a little time for some interchange. I'd like to talk about a particular kind of anti-scientism, a very concrete kind that, unless it's overcome, will bring the human experiment to an inglorious end. One of the really impressive figures in the international arena these days is UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. For years, he has been pleading with world leaders with increasing urgency to come to the answers and to deaf ears. A few days ago, he issued another plea at the World Economic Forum. I'll read his words. We say it all. We're flirting with climate disaster. Every week brings a new climate horror story. Greenhouse gas emissions are at record levels. The commitment to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees is going up in smoke. Without further action, we are headed to a 2.8 degree increase. The consequences, I'm still quoting, consequences will be devastating. Several parts of our planet will be uninhabitable. For many, this is a death sentence. But it is not a surprise, Guterres continues. The science has been clear for decades. I am not talking only about UN scientists. I am talking about fossil fuel scientists. We learned last week that certain fossil fuel producers were fully aware in the 1970s that their core product was baking our planet. Today, fossil fuel producers and their enablers are still racing to expand production, knowing full well that their business model is inconsistent with human survival. This insanity belongs in science fiction, but it is called scientific fact. And so it is. It is called scientific fact. So how are the world leaders dealing with it? By raising the precipice, not just the fossil fuel producers, also the banks that finance them, the governments that subsidize them. In the United States, tens of billions of dollars of subsidies annually, while the government also opens up federal property to exploit so as to accelerate the race to catastrophe. The business world is also financing a general war on science. That makes good sense. It's important for them to cast doubt on science-based government regulation of fossil fuels, which would be short-term profits. The behavior is sociopathic, but it's not explained 250 years ago by the icon of rising capitalism, Adam Smith. Smith wrote that in all ages, the masters of mankind who own the economy pursue their vile maxim, all for themselves, nothing for anyone else. Thanks to their power, they are the principal architects of government policy. They make sure that their own interests are privileged, no matter how grievous the effect on others. Much of the world becomes uninhabitable in the near future, with worse to come. not too far down the road, just too bad. It's not the concern of the masters of the universe, as they now call themselves, as they meet in Davos to listen to Guterres with their attention somewhere else. The facts are easily visible, not far from where you are. Scientists have understood for a long time that the Amazon is a self-sustaining system, and that as it is destroyed, the system collapses and the region comes to savanna, one of the world's enormous carbon sinks becomes a carbon emitter with a feedback process that accelerates the incalculable destruction. Brazilian scientists have found that it's already happening in some regions, far earlier than had been expected. Soon it will become irreversible. Well, the incoming Lula government might be able to stem the destruction, but there are powerful forces in the way, dedicated to the vile maxim and intensifying the campaign to destroy life on Earth. There have been the investigations of the January 8th insurrection, turned out financed by business interests pursuing vile maxim, no matter how grievous the effect on others, people of Brazil, in fact, the entire world. And much the same is happening elsewhere. Let's turn to the major center for the production of fossil fuels. That's, of course, much of it is already approaching the limits of habitability. The Mediterranean happens to be one of the fastest warming regions on Earth. There are now careful studies showing that by the end of the century, temperatures will have risen by 5 degrees Celsius. Sea levels will have risen by 2 meters or more. That means that most of the densely populated areas will be inundated. But how are the authorities reacting? The usual way, by accelerating the race to disaster with huge new investments to expand the fossil fuel production that will destroy all of them. In Israel, Israeli scientists have been warning the government that the disaster will be colossal and that they must prepare for it. They're doing so by reaching an agreement with Lebanon to exploit the gas resources at their maritime border. Great applause at home and in the international community for this display of international cooperation in suicide. A short distance away, a conflict is brewing in Cyprus, might explode into a major war. In the background are concerns with who will lead the way in destroying the environment by exploiting the fossil fuel resources of the Eastern Mediterranean, supervising pipelines to accelerate the disaster. Go a little farther away, India and Pakistan are devoting scarce resources to a likely war that will destroy both of them. One source of likely conflict is the melting of the glaciers that serve as a major water resource for both. Meanwhile, a few months ago, a third of Pakistan was deep underwater from unprecedented monsoon rains, while in nearby North India, poor peasants are trying to survive temperatures approaching 50 degrees Celsius. And this is, of course, not the ceiling, the current stage of our folly. A few months ago, the World Meteorological Association released a study of the trajectory we are pursuing. It that last year, greenhouse gas levels hit new highs. Looking back, quoting it, between 1990 and 2021, the warming climate rose by nearly 50. They picked 90 was that evidence of impending disaster had broken through the public awareness from the first of the international efforts to address calamity were undertaken and failed, not least because two countries refused to join, Andorra and the United States. Anticipated trajectory clear. It's too easy, all too easy to continue. The corporate organized attack on science has blocking the limited effects to impede the corporate campaign to destroy life on Earth. Also has collateral damage. To mention just one, the anti-vax campaigns, which are causing hundreds of thousands of deaths and enormous social costs. Another result of the attack on science, but none of the damage compares with the huge effort to foster climate denial. Well, to be precise, it's not primarily denial. Secretary General Guterres mentioned the recent revelation that back in the 1970s, ExxonMobil scientists, largest oil producer in the United States, their scientists predicted the disastrous effects of using fossil fuels with impressive accuracy. Management knew, but hid away the devastating revelations with company secrets. Who cares? Well, in 1988, the public started to care. The prominent geophysicist James Hansen brought the threat of extinction to public attention in widely publicized testimony in Congress. It was no longer possible to conceal the fact that the fossil fuel industry was baking the planet. And they reacted at once. After Hansen's testimony, secrecy was no longer possible. The public relations specialists of the companies were called into action. They recommended that the companies should not deny the facts that can be too easily refuted. Rather, what they should do is sow doubts. Say, maybe the science is not clear. Maybe we have not understood the effect of cloud cover or sunspots or something else. So let's wait. Let's continue to grow our economies by fossil fuels, so it'll be possible to confront the problems, if they are real, as a much richer society, while, of course, we're raking in huge profits. It's implicit, but not mentioned. Well, worked very well. That's the consequences are those that were reviewed by the World Meteorological Association. Those years have been wasted with destroying the environment, making it enormously harder today to deal with the problem than it would have been done. It's easy to supplement this record of corporate crime. It happens to be perfectly legal in a criminal society. Some people have asked how the management can sleep at night, and others have given the opposite and obvious answer. They sleep peacefully at night on mattresses that are bulging with dollars. In other words, Adam Smith's vile maxim. Over the centuries, humans have constructed institutional structures dedicated to species suicide in the interest of short-term gain for the masters. Well, that's some of the bad news. There's also good news. The International Energy Association just recently reaffirmed its message that the means to prevent catastrophe, to move on to a better world, are available, and they're feasible. And there's very strong evidence that they're right. Detailed plans have been developed that are quite feasible, could enable us to move on to a better world. And in part, they're being implemented thanks to the work of dedicated activists. In part, by no means sufficiently, and they have not reached the circles of the masters of the universe with anything like the force that must be achieved. Can be done with will and dedication, will not be easy, will be necessary to overcome powerful forces that can be mustered by the masters of the universe. And they have much to answer for as well. Those are matters that need little elaboration in Latin America, with its rich material and cultural resources and crushing poverty. It's important to add a cautionary note. Careful scientific work has shown that escape from catastrophe is possible. But apart from feasibility, there are questions of justice. Geologists have named the epoch since World War II the Anthropocene. It's a geological epoch in which human activity has had a major destructive impact on the environment. But the term Anthropocene is misleading. It's not all countries that are destroying the prospects for life on Earth. It's the rich countries. And even that is wrong. It's the rich in the rich countries who have overwhelming responsibility for the catastrophe and still do. That raises questions of climate justice. They fall beyond the bounds of scientific inquiry. Also raises other questions that go beyond the bounds of the natural sciences. Questions about the legitimacy of social institutions that are designed for species suicide. These are questions of enormous significance. They're, of course, beyond the reach of science, but not, we hope, beyond the reach of other aspects of human intelligence and moral capacity. We will know all too soon whether the enormous gap can be overcome between our technical capacity to destroy and our moral capacity to control that impulse. That's sometimes called the ultimate question. It's ultimate because if it does not receive the right answer, soon no one will care about anything else. That's our circumstance today. Thank you.
Le agradecemos al profesor Noam Chomsky su participación aquí en el Congreso Futuro con ideas que son, por cierto, contingentes, urgentes y que nos enfrentan ni más ni menos que a la posibilidad de la extinción. Se pregunta por la legitimidad de las instituciones sociales que están llevando a la humanidad al suicidio, esa fue la expresión que usó, y también por la forma de resolver esta tensión entre la capacidad para destruir cosas que tenemos los seres humanos y la capacidad moral para controlar ese impulso. Muy interesante la presentación del profesor